The rain turned into heavy hail, pounding the tin roof of the Ridgeside diner. The afternoon sky turned completely black, lit only by occasional flashes of lightning over the Virginia mountains. Chloe wiped the sweat from her forehead with her arm while balancing a tray with 3 mugs of hot chocolate. The storm had arrived without warning, catching everyone by surprise. What started as a light drizzle quickly became a violent downpour, forcing travelers to seek shelter wherever they could find it. The small roadside diner, usually quiet at this hour of the afternoon, was now full of people trying to escape the weather. 3 more hot chocolates, Arthur," Chloe called out over the noise of the rain as she delivered the tray to a family with a small child sitting near the window. The older man nodded from behind the counter, his lined face showing the same worry Chloe felt. In his 30 years running the diner, Arthur had rarely seen a storm this bad. "The road to the town center is probably blocked by now," he said in a low voice when Chloe approached to pick up more orders. "The weather report says it will only get worse during the night." Chloe bit her lip, taking in the information while her eyes moved across the room. All 12 tables were full, and several people stood near the door, checking phones that showed no signal. She did not need Arthur to tell her the situation was serious. She had lived in Pine Ridge for only 2 years, but she knew how quickly heavy rain could turn mountain roads into dangerous traps of mud and rock. The bell above the entrance jangled loudly, drawing her attention. Turning around, Chloe saw an elderly woman standing just inside the door, completely soaked from head to toe. Her white hair stuck to her pale face, and her shaking hands held a leather bag tight against her chest. Despite her heavy wool coat, the woman shivered violently from the cold wind that blew inside. "Goodness, please come inside," Chloe said, dropping her towel and rushing to the door. "Let us get you away from the draft and sit you down right next to the wood stove." The old woman allowed Chloe to guide her toward a small wooden table near the heater. Her steps were slow and hesitant, as if every movement required careful effort in her wet clothes. "Thank you, dear," the old woman said. Her voice was quiet but steady, contrasting with her fragile appearance. "I was in a taxi when the rain got too heavy. The driver told me he could not make it up the mountain road and left me here, promising to come back when the storm passed." Chloe frowned, upset by the driver's actions. Leaving an elderly person alone in this weather was terrible. She quickly fetched a clean towel from the supply closet and handed it to the woman. "Let me get you some hot chamomile tea. My name is Chloe." "Hazel," the woman replied, accepting the towel with a grateful smile. As Chloe walked to the kitchen, she noticed that Hazel's phone looked very expensive for an ordinary person, and her leather bag was made of fine material. The ring on her left hand held a stone that caught the dim light of the diner, gleaming brightly. These were not details Chloe usually noticed, but something about the woman's quiet dignity made her curious. The steaming tea brought some color back to Hazel's cheeks. While the old woman drank, Chloe watched the rain through the window. The sky was entirely dark now, and the local news on the small television behind the counter confirmed what everyone expected. Landslides had closed the main roads, and authorities advised everyone to stay exactly where they were until morning. "Attention, everyone!" Arthur called out, his voice rising above the chatter. The room went quiet immediately. "I just heard from the local emergency services. The highway is blocked in both directions. No one can leave until tomorrow morning when the crews clear the mud. We have extra blankets and can set up some space here for anyone who needs to spend the night." Worried murmurs spread through the diner. Some people tried their phones again, hoping for a sudden signal to inform their families. Others simply stared at the storm outside, accepting their situation. "I am sorry, dear," Hazel said, placing a thin hand over Chloe's hand when she returned to the table. "It looks like you will have a lot of extra work to do tonight." "Do not worry about that at all," Chloe said, smiling as she gently squeezed Hazel's hand. The skin felt thin but surprisingly warm. "The important thing is that everyone is safe inside. Do you have any family members we should try to contact?" A shadow passed through Hazel's eyes as she looked out the dark window. "My grandson, Christian," Hazel said. "I was on my way to visit his country house, but he does not know I decided to come today. It was a last-minute decision." She tried to reach into her bag for her phone, but her fingers shook too much. I am afraid I cannot get this device to work right now. Let me help you with that, Chloe offered, taking the modern phone. As they suspected, there was no network signal. As soon as the service comes back, we will send him a message, Chloe promised. Are you hungry? Hazel hesitated for a moment, not wanting to cause trouble, but then she nodded. A bowl of hot soup would be wonderful, she admitted. While walking to the kitchen to prepare the food, Chloe could not stop thinking about the woman. There was a sharp intelligence in her eyes that went beyond her wrinkles. She reminded Chloe of her own grandmother, who had passed away 5 years ago, leaving an emptiness that still remained. The hours moved slowly inside the crowded room. Arthur and the other 2 employees worked without stopping to make the stranded travelers comfortable. They pushed chairs together to make temporary beds, shared the few available blankets, and kept making fresh coffee to fight the cold night air. By 10 o'clock, most of the guests had settled down as best they could, resigning themselves to an uncomfortable night on the diner chairs. Hazel, however, looked increasingly pale and exhausted. Sitting by the stove, she closed her eyes frequently, trying to rest, only to wake up with a sudden start whenever the wind rattled the glass windows. You are not feeling well, Chloe noted, kneeling beside the old woman and touching her arm. Her skin was cool, and her fatigue was obvious to see. Just tired, my dear, Hazel answered with a weak smile. I am not used to adventures like this anymore. Chloe looked around the noisy room. The diner was packed, loud, and despite their best efforts, far from restful. A woman of Hazel's age needed a real bed and quiet surroundings to rest properly. Chloe made a decision that might make her own night difficult, but her heart would not let her ignore the woman's need. Hazel, I live in a tiny apartment right behind the diner, Chloe said. It is not fancy at all, but it has a very comfortable bed, and it is quiet. You can spend the night there. The old woman's eyes widened slightly in surprise. But what about you, young lady? Where would you sleep tonight? I have a small sofa in the living room that works perfectly for me, Chloe smiled, helping her up. I will not take no for an answer. Let us get you settled. After a quick word with Arthur, who agreed to the plan immediately, Chloe led Hazel through the back door of the diner into her small living space. The apartment was simple but neat. It had a modest front room with a 2-seater couch and a bookshelf filled with paperbacks, a small kitchen counter, 1 bedroom, and a clean bathroom. It was simple, but perfectly organized. It is lovely, Hazel murmured, looking at the framed photographs on the wall. Most of them showed mountain landscapes, and a few showed Chloe standing next to an older woman with a kind smile. It reminds me of the first house I lived in after I got married. While preparing the bed, Chloe found a clean nightgown and offered it to her guest. It should fit you. It is old, but dry and clean. Hazel took the clothes with a grateful expression. In my 78 years, I have learned there is a big difference between polite manners and true kindness, she said, holding Chloe's hands. What you are doing is not just professional duty. It is genuine goodness. And that is becoming rare in this world. Chloe felt a pleasant warmth in her chest. During the 2 years she had worked at the diner since moving from her hometown, she had focused entirely on her work, rarely forming deep connections with anyone. Hazel had broken through that shield effortlessly. Sleep well, Hazel, Chloe replied, tucking the blankets around the older woman. Tomorrow morning, when the storm clears up, we will find a way to reach your grandson. While setting up her own sheets and a pillow on the short sofa, Chloe had no idea how much this simple choice to help a stranger would change her life the very next day. The morning brought a soft light through the window blinds. Chloe woke up with a stiff neck from sleeping on the small couch. She stretched slowly, looking around the room for a moment before remembering the events of the previous night. The storm, the packed diner, and Hazel sleeping in her bedroom. She got up quietly and walked over to the cracked door. Hazel was still sleeping deeply, her breathing steady as the blanket rose and fell. Chloe smiled, glad that the elderly woman had found some peace. In the kitchen, she started a fresh pot of coffee, letting the rich scent fill the apartment. She needed to go back to the diner to help Arthur with the breakfast rush, but she did not want to leave before Hazel woke up. A quick glance out the window showed the rain had stopped, though gray clouds still hung over the trees. "Good morning, dear," a voice said from the doorway. Chloe turned to see Hazel standing there, wearing the borrowed nightgown. She had brushed her white hair and washed her face, looking much better than she had the night before. "Good morning, Hazel. Did you sleep well?" Chloe asked, pulling out a wooden chair for her. "Better than I have in years," she answered warmly. "That mattress is much softer than it looks." Chloe poured 2 cups of coffee, setting down some toast and homemade strawberry jam she had made during the summer. "I made this jam myself," Chloe mentioned as Hazel spread a large spoonful over her toast. "This is wonderful," the old woman exclaimed after taking a bite. "My grandmother used to make something very similar, though she always added a bit of cinnamon to her recipe. Mine did too." Chloe sat down, excited by the connection. "My grandmother taught me how to make all kinds of preserves. She always said the secret was picking the fruit at the exact right moment." The conversation continued easily while they finished their breakfast. Hazel shared stories about living in the city when she was younger, her late husband who had worked as an engineer, and how they traveled together before he passed away nearly 20 years ago. "And what brought you to this quiet corner of the mountains?" Hazel asked, her eyes showing a genuine interest that made Chloe feel truly heard. "I came here 2 years ago after my grandmother died," Chloe explained. "She raised me since I was 5 years old when my parents died in a car accident." Chloe realized she was sharing more than usual with a stranger, but Hazel's presence invited trust. "I was studying literature at a university, but after she left, the house felt too empty. A friend told me about the waitress job here, so I packed my bags and came." "And your studies?" Hazel inquired softly. Chloe stirred her coffee, looking down at the dark liquid. "I put them on hold," she admitted. "Life gets busy, bills need to be paid, and routine takes over." Hazel nodded without any judgment. "Sometimes the obstacles we find are not there to stop us," she said. "They are just there to force us to discover a different path." Before Chloe could answer, a firm knock on the door interrupted them. She wondered who it could be so early. Perhaps Arthur needed her in the kitchen. "Just a moment," she told Hazel, rising from her chair. When Chloe opened the door, she froze in place. Standing on her porch was a very tall man with striking, sharp features that blended seriousness with intense worry. He had stark white hair that contrasted sharply with his unusually pale skin. He wore dark trousers and a light blue shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows. His eyes, a deep and arresting shade, scanned Chloe quickly before looking past her into the small room. "Good morning. I am looking for Hazel," he said. His voice was deep and completely controlled, though Chloe could hear the underlying anxiety beneath his polite tone. "They told me at the diner she might be here." Before Chloe could speak, Hazel's voice sounded from behind her. "Christian, how did you find me here?" The white-haired man looked instantly relieved. His shoulders relaxed, and the harsh tension in his face softened completely. "Grandmother, I have been trying to call your phone for hours," he said, stepping into the room after Chloe gave him a brief nod. "When I saw the news about the landslides on the mountain road, I got worried. Your assistant told me you left yesterday afternoon." He hugged the old woman gently, as if afraid he might hurt her fragile frame. Hazel returned the hug with surprising strength. "I wanted to surprise you," she explained, patting his arm. "I did not expect the weather to turn against me like that." "You gave me a terrible scare," Christian murmured. "Why did you not let me send a driver for you?" "Because you would have found 100 reasons to stop me," Hazel said with a playful spark in her eyes. "You would say it was too dangerous for an old woman to travel alone, or you would make me wait until your meetings were over." "I wanted a small adventure," Christian sighed, clearly used to his grandmother's independent streak. "At least you are safe," he said, finally looking around the simple apartment. His gaze returned to Chloe, who stood near the door, suddenly feeling very aware of her plain clothes and the small space. "Forgive my manners. I am Christian," he said formally, extending his hand. His skin looked almost translucent, and when Chloe took his hand, his fingers were remarkably cool to the touch. "I understand you took care of my grandmother during the storm." "Chloe Martins," she introduced herself, releasing his hand. Your grandmother arrived yesterday evening, completely wet. The diner was packed with stranded travelers, so I offered her my place so she could get some proper rest. Christian's expression shifted slightly, showing a mixture of surprise and quiet gratitude. I am very grateful for your kindness, Miss Martins, he said, his formal tone matching the intensity of his stare. Not many people would give up their own bed for a stranger. It was no trouble at all, Chloe replied, shifting her feet. She glanced at the clock. Oh, it is almost 9 o'clock. I need to get back to the diner to help Arthur. I am sure the guests are eager to leave now that the sun is out. Of course, we will not keep you, Christian said quickly. Grandmother, let us gather your things. We should head back. Your doctor called this morning, worried that you missed your appointment. That doctor worries too much, Hazel grumbled, though she did not look truly annoyed. Chloe, dear, where did I leave my bag? While Chloe helped her gather her belongings, she noticed Christian looking at the photographs on the bookcase, especially the one of Chloe and her grandmother. There was a quiet curiosity in his pale face that made Chloe's heart beat a little faster, for reasons she could not explain. Hazel changed back into her clothes in the bedroom. When she returned to the front room, she looked like the elegant woman from the night before, except for her hair, which was still a bit damp. My coat is still quite wet, she noted, touching the heavy fabric hanging near the small heater. I can keep it here until it dries completely, Chloe offered. I will clean it properly and send it to you. Christian shook his head slightly. Do not worry about the coat, he said. We can easily replace it on the way home. He spoke in a way that suggested buying a luxury coat was a minor detail, but Hazel disagreed completely. Do not be ridiculous, Christian, she said. This coat was a gift from your grandfather during our trip to Europe. It has sentimental value. She turned back to Chloe with a warm smile. It would be very kind of you to send it when it is dry, dear. Before her grandson could object again, she wrote down an address and a phone number on a small piece of paper from her purse. Call me when it is ready, and I will have someone collect it. Chloe took the paper, noticing the elegant handwriting and the address located in a wealthy coastal district a few hours away. I will take care of it as soon as it dries, she promised, putting the note safely in her pocket. The three of them walked out of the apartment and through the back door into the diner. The Ridgeside diner was bustling with customers eating breakfast before starting their journeys home. Arthur waved from behind the counter, looking curious when he saw Chloe with Hazel and the white-haired stranger. In the parking lot, Chloe noticed a large, luxury black vehicle parked near the entrance. A driver stood by the front door, bowing slightly when Christian approached. He opened the back door for Hazel, who turned to hold Chloe's hands one last time. Thank you for everything, my dear. Your kindness meant more than you know, she said with real warmth. It was a pleasure meeting you, Hazel, Chloe responded. You were wonderful company. The old woman smiled, her sharp eyes seeming to see right through Chloe's thoughts. Do not forget our conversation, she added in a lower voice. Sometimes, a sudden detour leads to a much better destination, and make sure to call me about that coat. Christian helped his grandmother into the vehicle, then turned back to Chloe. For a moment, he hesitated on the gravel parking lot, looking at her with a quiet intensity that did not match the casual nature of their meeting. Thank you again for watching over her, Miss Martins. Your actions will not be forgotten. He extended his hand, and when Chloe shook it, she felt him press a small card into her palm. Until next time, he said. The words sounded like a promise rather than a polite farewell. Chloe stood in the cold morning air, watching the expensive car drive down the mountain road until it disappeared around a sharp bend. She opened her hand to look at the card. It was a thick piece of paper with his name, Christian, and a single phone number written in dark ink across the back. Chloe felt a strange warmth rise to her cheeks. It was just a contact card from a grateful relative, she told herself. So why were her fingers shaking as she slipped it into her pocket? The sound of Arthur calling her name from the diner kitchen brought her back to reality. The day had started, and there was work to be done. She would have to think about the pale stranger and his grandmother later. 3 days passed after Hazel left the mountain town. The storm had left some broken branches along the roads, but the diner slowly returned to its usual routine. Chloe carefully folded Hazel's coat, which was now completely dry after a thorough cleaning at the local shop down the street. The fine wool had a faint scent of lavender from the small sachet she had placed inside the box. "You still haven't called her, have you?" Leo asked, leaning against the kitchen doorframe while watching Chloe tie a piece of string around the cardboard box. "How do you know that?" she asked back, avoiding her co-worker's gaze as she pulled the knot tight. Leo laughed, walking into the back room and sitting on a crate. "Because I have known you for 2 years, Chloe, and because I have seen you look at that phone number at least 10 times this week. You look like you are staring at a map to a hidden treasure." Chloe closed her eyes, feeling her face grow warm. The card was sitting safely in her nightstand drawer at home, kept away like a secret she wasn't ready to share. "It is not that simple, Leo," Chloe muttered, placing the box on the shelf. "And why not?" he asked, tilting his head. "The lady explicitly asked you to call when the coat was ready. It is ready, so you should make the call." Chloe sat down across from him, sighing deeply. "You saw their car, Leo. You saw how they were dressed. They belong to a completely different world than we do. They are incredibly wealthy," he said plainly. "So what? The old woman genuinely liked you, and her grandson could barely take his eyes off you when he was standing on your porch. He was just assessing the person who took care of his grandmother," Chloe argued, trying to dismiss the memory of Christian's dark, intense eyes. "You are imagining things." Leo raised his hands in defense, but his grin showed he didn't believe her excuses. He stood up and headed back to the kitchen, leaving Chloe alone with her thoughts and the neatly wrapped package. After the lunch rush ended and the diner grew quiet, Chloe finally found the courage to make the call. She sat on the back bench outside, dialing the number from Hazel's note, her stomach twisting with a sudden nervousness. After 3 rings, a polite voice answered the phone. The residence of the family. "Hello," Chloe stammered, caught off guard by the formal greeting. "I am calling for Hazel. This is Chloe from the diner in Pine Ridge." There was a brief silence on the line before the voice responded. "One moment, please, Miss Martins. I will see if she is available to take your call." Chloe blinked in surprise, wondering how they knew her last name so quickly. Before she could think about it, Hazel's warm voice came through the speaker. "Chloe, my dear, what a wonderful surprise to hear from you today." The genuine happiness in the old woman's voice made Chloe relax instantly. "How are you doing, Hazel? Have you recovered from your adventure in the mountains?" "I am doing wonderfully, thanks to your hospitality." Hazel laughed softly. "I assume you are calling about the winter coat." "Yes, it is completely dry and clean," Chloe said. "I can drop it in the mail for you today if you like." "Absolutely not," the answer came back immediately. "You must bring it to the house yourself. I insist you come have tea with me this Saturday afternoon." The invitation caught Chloe completely unprepared. She had expected to simply ship the box or hand it to a driver. "I am not sure I can do that," she hesitated, trying to find a polite excuse. "Come now, Chloe, do not decline," Hazel urged gently. "I rarely find people I enjoy talking with as much as I enjoyed talking with you. Besides, I want to show you my personal library. I have some rare editions of poetry that I know you would love to see." The mention of books touched Chloe's heart. Since leaving her university studies, she had missed surrounded by literature. "Well, Saturday is my day off," she admitted. "Perfect," Hazel said with clear satisfaction. "I will send a car to pick you up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It will make the trip much easier for you." "A car? No, that is not necessary," Chloe protested, but Hazel hung up after a warm goodbye, leaving no room for refusal. Saturday arrived much faster than Chloe expected. After a restless night of sleep, she stood in front of her open closet with a growing sense of dread. None of her everyday clothes seemed right for a visit to a wealthy estate. Her worn jeans, simple blouses, and casual dresses all looked far too plain. She finally chose a simple dark blue dress with long sleeves, combining it with flat shoes and a small silver necklace that had belonged to her grandmother. It was the neatest outfit she possessed. Promptly at 2 o'clock, a clean black sedan pulled up to the diner. The same driver from before, whose name was Thomas, stepped out and approached with a polite smile. "Good morning, Miss Martins. Are you ready for our journey?" Chloe nodded, feeling the curious looks of the customers inside the diner. Arthur waved from the window with a supportive smile, while Leo gave her a quick thumbs up from the counter. The drive out of the mountains was smoother and more comfortable than any trip Chloe had ever taken. The car moved quietly down the highway. The temperature inside was perfect, and soft music played from the speakers, creating a calm atmosphere. Thomas spoke only when she started a conversation, proving to be very polite and knowledgeable about the surrounding valleys. After a 2-hour drive, they entered a quiet, wealthy neighborhood, filled with large estates, hidden behind stone walls and iron gates. The car stopped in front of a grand house built from gray stone, surrounded by old trees and perfectly manicured lawns. "Hazel is waiting for you on the terrace, miss," Thomas informed her, opening her door. Chloe felt her stomach tighten as she walked up the stone steps toward the massive front entrance. Before she could even reach for the brass knocker, the door opened wide. Hazel stood there, wearing an elegant green outfit, her arms open wide in a welcoming gesture. "Chloe, it is wonderful to see you," she exclaimed, giving her a warm hug. "Come inside. The tea is already prepared for us." The interior of the house was vast, with high ceilings and beautiful wooden furniture, but it also felt like a real home. There were stacks of books on the side tables, family photographs in silver frames, and comfortable chairs near the large windows. "It is beautiful," Chloe said honestly as she followed Hazel into a bright living room that opened onto a wide stone terrace overlooking the garden. "Thank you, dear," Hazel replied. "My grandson thinks this place is too big for an old woman, but I like the space. He keeps insisting I should have a full-time companion living here, but I am perfectly capable of managing on my own." Chloe smiled, recognizing the independent spirit she admired. "I brought your coat," she said, handing over the neatly tied box. Hazel set it down on a table without opening it. "Thank you, Chloe. Now, let us go out to the terrace. The view is lovely today." While following her host, Chloe noticed the house seemed remarkably quiet. There was no sign of Christian or anyone else, except for a quiet housekeeper who was setting down a tray of food. Chloe felt a sudden, strange flash of disappointment, followed immediately by irritation at herself. She hadn't come here to see the white-haired man, she reminded herself. She had come to return a coat and enjoy tea with a kind woman. The terrace table was beautifully set with fine porcelain cups, silver spoons, and cloth napkins. "Please, sit down," Hazel invited, pointing to a chair. "We have a lot to talk about." Chloe sat, trying to ignore the feeling that there was more to this invitation than a simple thank you. Hazel's eyes held a bright expectation, and her conversation, while pleasant, seemed to guide them toward a specific topic. "Tell me more about your university studies, Chloe," Hazel said, pouring the tea. "What kind of books did you enjoy reading the most?" Chloe felt a spark of memory light up her face. Her college days felt far away now, like they belonged to someone else. "I had a deep love for classic American poetry and old stories," she confessed, touching the edge of her cup. "I loved authors who could capture a whole life in just a few simple lines." Hazel's eyes brightened at her words. "A true appreciation for words is rare these days," she murmured. "My grandson, for example, is always so occupied with his responsibilities that he rarely finds time to sit down with a book." The casual mention of Christian made Chloe's heart give a small thud, but she kept her face completely calm. "He seems very dedicated to his family duties," she noted quietly. "Far too dedicated if you ask me," Hazel sighed. "Since he took over managing our family estates and affairs, he rarely looks up from his ledgers and accounts. It is not healthy for someone to carry such a heavy burden alone." The housekeeper appeared again, bringing a plate of small sandwiches and fresh pastries. While Hazel thanked her, Chloe looked out over the expansive garden. "I have something special to show you," Hazel announced when they finished their tea. "Come with me." She led Chloe back inside the house, walking down a long hallway toward a set of heavy wooden doors. When she pushed them open, Chloe could not suppress a gasp of delight. It was a massive private library, with shelves stretching from the floor to the high ceiling, completely filled with leather-bound books. A wooden ladder rested against one wall, allowing access to the higher shelves, and two large leather chairs sat near a stone fireplace. "This is my favorite room in the house," Hazel explained, watching Chloe's amazed expression. "My husband and I collected these volumes over many decades." "It is incredible," Chloe whispered, stepping closer to touch the spine of an old book. "You may take any book you like," Hazel encouraged her. "Books are meant to be read, not just kept on shelves." Hesitantly, Chloe pulled out a small volume with a faded blue cover. When she opened it, she saw an old inscription on the first page. It was a beautiful collection of early poetry. "This is a very rare edition," Chloe noted reverently. Hazel smiled, a gentle look in her eyes. "Many people only see the financial cost of things, Chloe. They look at these shelves and see a fortune. But the real value lies in the stories and emotions they hold. You understand that, just like you understood how to help an old woman in a storm without expecting anything in return. That is why I like you so much, dear." Before Chloe could answer, the sound of the front door opening echoed through the hallway. Deep voices sounded from the main room, and Hazel smiled in a way that made her look much younger. "That must be Christian," she remarked casually. "He mentioned he might stop by this afternoon to check on me." Chloe's pulse quickened, and she quickly smoothed her dress, annoyed by her own nervous reaction. Christian appeared at the library door. He was wearing dark jeans and a plain gray shirt, looking much more casual than he had at the diner, but his striking white hair and pale skin still gave him an otherworldly appearance. His dark eyes showed a flash of surprise when he saw Chloe standing by the bookshelf. "Chloe," he said, his voice low, "I did not expect to find you here today. I came to return your grandmother's coat," she explained, feeling suddenly very small in the grand library. "She was kind enough to invite me for tea, and I wanted to show her our collection," Hazel added with a knowing smile. "Chloe has a wonderful understanding of literature, Christian. She studied it before she moved to Pine Ridge." Christian walked into the room, his movements entirely silent and graceful. "Is that so?" he asked, looking at Chloe with genuine interest. "Why did you stop your studies?" "I had to take care of things after my grandmother passed away," Chloe answered honestly. "I needed to work, so I put my education on hold." There was a brief silence as Christian considered her words. "My grandson also had to alter his path early in life," Hazel noted, looking at Christian. "He had other interests, but family duties required him to step into his current role much sooner than expected." "We all do what must be done," Christian said quietly, his eyes remaining fixed on Chloe. "It is a matter of protecting what matters. Christian, why don't you show Chloe the greenhouse on the upper terrace?" Hazel suggested suddenly, stepping toward the door. "The afternoon light is perfect for seeing the orchids, and I need to speak with the kitchen staff about dinner." Before either of them could say a word, the old woman had walked out of the library, leaving them alone in the quiet room. Christian passed a hand through his white hair, a slight smile appearing on his face. "My grandmother lacks subtlety," he admitted, his deep voice filling the space between them. "But the greenhouse is truly remarkable, if you would care to see it." Chloe hesitated for only a second before nodding. "I would love to see it," she said. The greenhouse was a beautiful glass structure built onto the side of the upper hill, filled with rare plants and green ferns. The air inside was warm and scented with rich earth and flowers. Christian walked beside her, keeping a respectful distance, but remaining close enough that she could feel the cool air that seemed to surround him. He pointed out different species, speaking with a surprising amount of knowledge about their care. They sat down on a stone bench near the edge of the glass wall, looking out at the sunset. The sky was changing into shades of deep orange and soft purple, casting long shadows across the valley below. "You seem to care a lot about these plants," Chloe observed, watching his pale hands trace the edge of a green leaf. "I spent a lot of time here when I was younger," Christian replied, his dark eyes fixed on the horizon. "This estate has belonged to my family for a very long time. It is a quiet place, away from the noise of the modern world. My responsibilities require me to spend a lot of time dealing with distant affairs, but I always return here." He turned to look at her. "Do you miss your old life before the diner?" "Sometimes," Chloe admitted, looking down at her hands. "I miss the books and the university discussions, but the mountains have a peace of their own. My grandmother loved the quiet of nature, and she taught me to appreciate it. She told me about losing her parents at a young age, the accident that changed her life, and how her grandmother had been her only anchor. Christian listened to her story without interrupting, his expression serious and attentive. When she finished, he placed his hand near hers on the stone bench. His fingers were still unusually cool, but the gesture felt deeply comforting. "I lost my father when I was young as well," he shared in a low voice. "The responsibility of leading our family fell on my shoulders suddenly. It was a heavy burden for someone of my age at the time. That is why you seem so serious," Chloe noted gently, looking at his sharp features. He turned his head to meet her gaze, his dark eyes reflecting the fading light of the sun. "It is a long history, Chloe. My family is different from most. We have traditions and duties that span generations, and they require a great deal of vigilance. Some days the weight is heavier than others. I understand what it is like to carry a quiet weight," Chloe said softly. They sat in silence for several minutes, as the stars began to appear in the darkening sky. A cool breeze filtered through the open vents of the greenhouse, causing Chloe to shiver slightly in her thin dress. Christian noticed immediately and stood up, extending his hand to help her up. "It is getting late, and the temperature is dropping," he said, his voice gentle. "We should go back inside before you catch a cold." As they walked back toward the main house, Chloe noticed how he slowed his steps to match her pace, his presence feeling protective and solid beside her. They found Hazel in the dining room, where a light supper had been prepared for them. The meal passed with easy conversation about books, history, and the quiet life in the mountains. Chloe discovered that behind Christian's cold, serious exterior lay a sharp mind and a deep appreciation for the simple things she cared about. Hazel watched them with a quiet satisfaction, clearly pleased with the connection forming between them. When Thomas was finally called to drive Chloe back to Pine Ridge, it was past 9 o'clock in the evening. At the front door, Hazel embraced Chloe warmly. "You must come visit us again, dear. This house is always open to you." Christian walked Chloe down the stone steps toward the waiting car, the night air quiet around them. "I would like to see you again, Chloe," Christian said, stopping beside the vehicle. "Not just because my grandmother wishes it, but because I truly enjoyed your company." Chloe felt her heart beat faster against her ribs. "I would like that too," she answered honestly, looking up into his pale face under the moonlight. "I have some business near Pine Ridge next week," he said. "Perhaps we could have dinner together after your shift at the diner." "That sounds wonderful," she smiled, stepping into the car. "I will call you to arrange the details," Christian promised, holding the car door open for a moment. "Good night, Chloe." "Good night, Christian," she replied as the door closed. During the drive back to the mountains, Chloe looked out the window at the dark trees passing by. Her mind was filled with the images of the afternoon, the vast library, the warm greenhouse, and the quiet comfort of Christian's presence. It seemed strange that only a few days ago she didn't know he existed, and now she couldn't stop thinking about him. When they arrived at the diner, Leo was just locking up the front doors. He stopped when he saw the luxury car pull into the gravel lot. Chloe stepped out, carrying the small book of poetry that Hazel had insisted she keep as a gift. "Thank you, Thomas," she told the driver before he pulled away into the night. "Well, look who finally returned from the grand estate," Leo teased, walking over to her with a wide grin. "How was your afternoon with the wealthy family?" "It was lovely," Chloe admitted, holding the book tight against her chest. "We had tea, and we talked for hours." "And the white-haired grandson?" Leo asked, raising an eyebrow. "We are going to have dinner next week," she smiled. The following days moved quickly, as Chloe went about her work at the diner, but her thoughts remained fixed on the upcoming dinner. Christian texted her a few days later, confirming the time and asking if she would mind a small drive into the hills for their meal. She agreed readily, feeling a sense of anticipation she hadn't felt in years. On the evening of their meeting, Christian arrived exactly at 7 o'clock. He was driving a rugged Jeep instead of the luxury sedan, wearing a simple jacket that made him look a bit more like a local resident, though his striking features still drew the attention of Arthur from behind the counter. "Ready for our dinner?" he asked with a rare, bright smile. Christian drove them up a winding dirt road that led to a high plateau overlooking the entire mountain valley. He parked the vehicle near a clearing where the trees opened up to a spectacular view of the stars. He had brought a basket filled with fresh bread, local cheeses, and fruit, setting out a thick blanket on the green grass for them to sit on. "This is incredible," Chloe murmured, looking down at the distant lights of the small town below. "My father used to bring me here when I was a child," Christian explained, pouring 2 glasses of dark juice. "My family once owned a large portion of these hills before the town grew. This small ridge is one of the few pieces we kept for ourselves because of the quiet view. It feels completely separate from the rest of the world," Chloe noted, accepting her glass. "It is," Christian agreed, sitting beside her. His dark eyes caught the reflection of the stars above. "My life is often filled with complex affairs and ancient obligations that most people would find difficult to understand. Being here, with you, feels simple. It is a relief." They ate and talked for hours, sharing stories about their childhood memories and their hopes for the future. Chloe found herself talking about her desire to finish her degree and perhaps teach literature one day. Christian listened with deep respect, encouraging her ideas. "I believe you would be an excellent teacher, Chloe. You have a genuine appreciation for the depth of human stories." As the night grew colder, Christian moved a little closer, his presence shielding her from the mountain wind. "You asked me before about my family," he said quietly. "There are things about my nature that are different, Chloe. My people have lived in the shadows for a very long time, observing the world change around us. It can be a lonely existence." "I don't think you are as cold as you appear to be," Chloe whispered, looking into his dark eyes. Christian smiled, a gentle expression softening his face. "Perhaps not. Meeting you has made me look at the world differently. Your kindness to my grandmother showed me that there is still true goodness to be found, even in a sudden storm." He reached out, his cool fingers gently brushing a stray lock of hair away from her face. "I know we have only known each other a short time, Chloe, but I feel a deep connection to you that I cannot ignore." Chloe leaned into his touch, finding comfort in the contrast of his cool skin. "I feel it too, Christian," she admitted. Their first kiss was quiet and gentle under the vast canopy of stars, a silent understanding between 2 different worlds. When they finally drove back down the mountain, Chloe felt a deep sense of peace about the future. There would be challenges to face and different lives to integrate. But for the first time in many years, the path ahead looked bright and full of promise. Looking back at the choices that brought her to this moment, Chloe realized how a single act of hospitality during a violent autumn storm could alter the entire direction of a life. She had opened her door to an elderly woman in need of shelter, expecting nothing more than a quiet night of work, and instead, she had found a bridge to a world she never knew existed. The quiet routines of the Ridgeside Diner still remained, and the mountain roads would still face the changing seasons, but her own journey had shifted completely toward a horizon filled with light and shared understanding. Christian's presence in her life was a constant reminder that the unexpected obstacles people encounter are often just hidden turnings meant to lead them toward the people they are meant to find. As she thought about the days ahead, about returning to her books, and finishing the education she had left behind, she knew she would no longer be walking that path alone. The cool mountain air no longer felt lonely or forbidding. It felt like the beginning of a long, quiet story that they would write together over the years to come, grounded in the simple warmth they had discovered in each other's presence.